Howdy golfers, welcome to my podcast. 欢迎来到高尔夫牛仔播客，我是 Jason。今天的来宾跟大家介绍一下，他也是英国 PGA 的成员，他又是个创业者。我相信很多的观众朋友呢，也经常在社交媒体上看到他。他是我的好朋友 Ollie， 欢迎。
Hello, 大家好。
Ollie, how long has it been in China?
Actually, almost 9 years now. Time has gone by quickly. 9 years, yeah. I think 9 years. This next February will be 9 years. So, yeah. All of it's in Shenzhen. I've lived in Shenzhen for 9 years. Definitely my favorite city. But yeah, 9 years. It's gone by very quick.
What made you come out here? What was
Well, I was 20, I think 22 when I came out. I knew I didn't want to work in England because I knew I was going to work in the golf industry, and the English weather is just not great for being a golf coach because you probably only get 4 months of the year decent weather. So I knew I wanted to go abroad. I went traveling for a little bit, and then I knew a guy, John Garrett, who was working in China. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, can I come out and check it out? So I came out here and I've not left since. So that was the reason why I had a friend who was already over here, and yeah, I saw the potential of golf in China and working out here. So yeah, made the move.
I'm assuming you've enjoyed your time here, which is why you stuck it out.
Yeah, it's been great. I mean, the golf industry here is great for coaches.
What's been the most impressive part? What made you kind of stick it out here? What was kind of that factor?
Well, I love the city of Shenzhen. I think Shenzhen's great. I'm not gonna lie. The potential of earning here was higher than England, so that was definitely a factor. So I think those two things initially, obviously as time has gone on, it's evolved a little bit, but initially those two things. I love Shenzhen. I like China in general, and then the just the opportunity here is far greater than what I could have in England.
And a lot of people love you too. Wow. You got a quite a following on social media.
Yeah, it's steadily grown. I mean, I've been doing that now for I think almost 5 years, making those videos.
How did it all start?
Making the videos?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, being a golf coach, we're working in the service industry, and marketing is such a big part of our job, right? Because it doesn't really matter how good you are at teaching golf. If you're not showing it to anyone or exposing that to anyone, it's hard to get students. So I knew the importance of marketing. The first few years of me being in China, I didn't really know what platforms to utilize because it's very different to the West. There's none of this, the websites that we have over there that we have over here. And then I somehow found out about Douyin and that kind of thing. And I've always enjoyed editing videos. That's always been a bit of a hobby of mine. So I just kind of merged the two, golf instruction with the videos. And I started on Douyin, and I think the first video did okay. I was like, oh, this is good. Yeah. And that kind of motivated me to continue making them. So yeah, I think I started about 5 years ago, just making little tip videos. I guess the same as I do now.
How many followers you got now?
Well, I think over the three platforms, Douyin, Xiaohongshu, and WeChat, I think it's about 105,000 total. But I mean, for 5 years of making videos, I wouldn't say that's substantial. I guess in the golf market in China, because it's a lot smaller than the West, I guess it's not bad. But yeah, I've made thousands of videos. So I guess if anyone made that amount of videos, you're going to get a lot of followers.
We'll talk about that in a sec. We'll kind of go into a little more detail on how you kind of balance your life and that part. I kind of want to know how your golf journey started.
Yeah. Well, I would say I started quite late. I didn't start till I was 14, which I think is quite late in comparison to a lot of golf pros. My dad initially got me into it. And then I joined a golf club in England, and as a junior, when you join a golf club in England, it's easy to get involved in like the junior section. So you get yourself a handicap, you start playing in the junior tournaments, and I really enjoyed that side of it and the social aspect as well. I made some friends, and so I kind of got obsessed with it. I made an older friend who drove, and I was 14 at the time, and he used to pick me up from school every day after school, and we used to go to the golf club and play all afternoon. So I think that was a real draw for me, the fact that you had that social scene at the same time you can play golf. So I think that was, for the following 3 years, I was doing that pretty much every day, and I think that was the reason why I was able to progress quite quickly. But yeah, I would say just having that environment at an English golf club with that junior side, the handicap, trying to get your handicap as low as possible, that was really appealing to me, and I think that's why I was able to kind of progress quickly, I'd say.
And you did something interesting that a lot of people did not do before you started golf, right? You were a gymnast?
Oh, sure, yeah. Well, gymnastics was one sport. I was played every sport. My family is very sports orientated. My dad was a professional football player. My mum was a badminton coach. I had a brother who was very sporty, so I grew up just playing every sport.
So the genes run in the family.
Well, I guess genes plus a lot of practice in other sports. Like I played a lot of badminton, I played a lot of tennis, I did gymnastics. So I played a lot of football, basketball. I mean, every sport I was playing a lot. I think at different points in my life, I was obsessed with a different sport. And it was just so happened that golf I kind of I've persisted with longer.
It's interesting because that reminds me of the nature versus nurture aspect of it. Right. Surely, of course, from the nature part, your parents were athletic.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
They're quite talented with that. But then afterwards, the nurture part, which even though you didn't touch golf until you were 14, but you did all the other sports and you did all that. Do you think that helped in your golf development?
Well, I don't think anyone's born to play a certain sport. I think you develop fundamental movement skills at an early age, and then that enables you to play any sport you want. If you develop good fundamental movement skills, you can play any sport to a good degree. Obviously, if you want to play it really well, you have to still do the reps. But me going into golf, I picked it up quite quickly because I played all those other sports before that had common characteristics to golf. The way you grip a badminton racket is kind of similar to a golf. The way you swing a racket is very similar. So I just basically copy and pasted those existing skills that I had into my golf. And obviously that's why I was also able to progress quickly. But yeah, the nature and nurture, I think it's a combination of the two. But again, I grew up in England where there's a lot of space. And me and my brother used to compete every single day in the garden in some sport. So I had that competitive drive as well. I guess that's the benefit of growing up with a brother. But yeah, I was very lucky in that sense that I was just playing sport every day.
I think that's very interesting because I think a lot of our parents, I think they come to us and one of the first things that they always ask is, does my kid have talent? Right? And so a lot of it is, okay, well, what other sports did it play? Right? That's usually, or at least that's the question I ask them as well, right? Because I think it's hard to early specialize in golf, right? Because it's such a difficult sport, and it's a combination of all the other sports essentially, right? And the other sports you get some feedback, right? If the ball's moving, and even if it's not moving, you've got some coordination that you need to work on. As you said, the fundamental movement skills, right? The running, the jumping, right? The skipping, the throwing, the catching. I think that gets overlooked quite a bit.
Well, absolutely with golf. And I think with golf, the problem with it is the ball is not moving. And so a lot of parents or people think, well, okay, you don't have to be athletic to play golf. It's not a contact sport and the ball isn't moving. So I can be not very good at sports, but still get really good at golf. And I don't think that's true. I think to be a great golfer, you still have to be athletic. It's just not the same way as being athletic in those other sports. So yeah, golf is a sport like any other. You still have to be athletic to be good at it. I think.
I agree. That I think that's the importance of, golf fitness, right? I think a lot of people kind of get sucked into, okay, it's all technique, but there's so much more to it, right? Your technique can be enhanced by your fitness, right? Your coordination, your strength, your balance, and all that stuff. Technique's only a small part of it.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a body that's able to do those things, and golf, think about what we're really doing in golf. You have this long stick with a heavy weight on the end, and you have to swing that around your body at really high speeds. So you absolutely need flexibility and strength with mobility as well. And without those things, it doesn't matter if you've got the best coach on the planet or you know everything about the technique, your body is not going to allow you to do it. So absolutely, you have to have a body that's helping you, So you have to be athletic.
Golf is still a sport. Still a sport.
Still a sport, It's just not a contact sport or it's not a reactive sport. You're not reacting to something moving, but you're still moving your body with a weight, And it's tough. It's really difficult. It's definitely, out of all the sports I've played, I would say golf is definitely the most difficult sport for me.
Oh, that's what I tell people as well. That's what I tell people as well.
Yeah. It's hard. It's a really hard sport.
The irony is the ball's not even moving, right? And then people look at it on TV and go, "Oh, well, they are swinging it so flawlessly. They're doing it so smoothly." I remember as a kid growing up, especially like in middle school or high school, and when my peers found out, like, "Oh, you're playing golf?" Like, yeah, that's not a sport. Right. I don't know if you got that in the UK.
Well, I think still to this day it's believed in that kind of sense, because I mean, not so much now because the professionals are far more athletic, but 15 years ago you had people like John Daly with a big gut and smashing it 300 yards. But yeah, I think people still have that perception of golf a little bit like, oh, it's not really a sport for athletes. But I would disagree strongly. I don't think you need good cardio necessarily to be a good golfer. You don't need to be able to run a marathon, but you still need an athletic body in different aspects.
I mean, you're still technically generating a lot of power in a very short amount of time, right? So I remember when one of my friends told me that in high school. He was a tennis player. He was on our school's tennis varsity tennis team as well. So he was a decent player. He was a decent athlete. And I remember the first time I took him to the driving range, I was like, "All right, you can laugh all you want. I'm gonna take you on the driving range now. Have a go at it." He told me that night he could not even bend down to pick up his pencil when he dropped it, and when he was eating at home, his chopsticks were shaking. Right. I was like, look, it's hard to tell what the game is like until you actually try it. Right.
Well, it's a game of precision. A couple of millimeters wrong, and you're going to hit the worst golf shot ever. So you're talking about tiny adjustments need to be made, and you can only get good at it through thousands, millions of reps, really. So yeah, tough game.
So I want to go back into your golf journey back in the UK again. So you started golf at 14. Did you play a lot of tournaments? What was your practice routine like?
I don't want to say practice. I want to say play, because I think that's a better word to use. Because at the time, I was just obsessed with golf. I just loved it.
What do you like about it? What made you that upset? Because you played other sports, right? What was the hook?
I think the big thing was like having the handicap and having a target of trying to get your handicap as low as possible. I think that was the draw for me. Because every tournament, you want to shoot a certain score, so you bring your handicap down, get it as close to zero as possible. So I think that was motivating to me. I also was obsessed with Tiger Woods. I think he was a big determining factor for me. I just loved his golf swing. I loved his charisma. I loved everything about him. And I remember I got when I was 15, I think I got one of those, the iPods, the early generation iPods. I think the first one that was able to play video. And I somehow managed to get Tiger Woods' swing video on that iPod, and I used to go on the golf course and like look at his swing and then try and copy it. So Tiger was a big influence on me. And then I think just that constant trying to get your handicap lower. And in England, the setup for junior golfers is so good, because in the summer there's at least 2 tournaments that you can play in per week to get your handicap down. You're playing with other juniors, you're also playing with other adults. So I think the environment in England for juniors is really good to keep you playing and keep you motivated to play. But yeah, so I started 14. I think my first handicap was 28. To you guys that don't understand handicap, that meant that I was shooting about 100 off would have been yellow tees. And yeah, so I think when I was 17, I got to 2. So in 3 years, I guess, I got it from 28 to 2, which is pretty quick. But although I really loved playing, I think when I got to probably 17, I switched my my thoughts to more, okay, I'm going to be a golf coach. So early on, I kind of came to the conclusion that playing, I don't think was for me. I think I wanted to work in the golf industry, and I thought coaching was going to be my path.
What was the kind of inspiration? What was the catch with coaching?
Well, at golf clubs in England, you always have the professionals, the head pro. Right. Sometimes you have an assistant pro, but every golf club in England will have a head pro. And as a junior golfer, I really looked up to the head pro. I saw them every day teaching, running the academy, and I think that was a desire of mine, kind of instilled on me as well. So
you didn't want the glory and everything that we had on TV and following Tiger Woods, and
I'm not sure whether I ever thought that was a realistic goal. So I can't. I mean, it's a long time ago, but I remember vividly about 17 that I wanted to start the PGA, and I wanted to do that so that I could be a head pro somewhere, a golf coach, run the academy. So I had that kind of vision in my mind, and so yeah, when I turned 18, I enrolled into the PGA. My handicap was low enough. Did the playability, the playing test that you have to do to enroll into the PGA.
How was that? How was that experience? Did you?
It was okay. I mean, I had to. For those of you that don't know, the PGA is a 3-year university degree, but to enroll into the PGA, first of all, you have to have a handicap that's lower than 4, which means you're consistently shooting lower than 76. You have to get a full-time job at your golf club under a head professional, and then you have to do a playing test, 2 rounds. Actually, the scoring is actually not too difficult. I think over 2 games when I did it was plus 15 or lower. It still it makes you nervous because you've only got 2 rounds, and if you go above it, you have to completely enroll again, I think. But anyway, I had to do it in London, which was like a 2-hour drive for me.
Okay, so you did the sort of distance learning, right? You didn't do the not the full-time University of Birmingham route.
I think that's called, I think that's a different
AGMS or
something like that. But the standard PGA is where you have to work at a golf club whilst you're doing it, which I think is better. But anyway, I had to travel to London to do my playing test, and I think I was teeing off at like 8 a.m. So I had to leave home at like 5 a.m. So it was a really early start. Thankfully, I managed to shoot a 69 in the morning, which meant I basically had 18 shots to play with in the afternoon. So obviously I was far more relaxed. I can't remember what I shot in the afternoon. It was like high 70s, but yeah, that was a relief just to get through that. Yeah. Passed the playing test in one go. And then, I was ready to start the PGA.
That's awesome. I remember my first PAT. I didn't pass my first PAT. Yeah. My first round, I shot 76. I thought.
Oh, great. Lovely. So you've got, 11 shots to work with?
I had 11 shots to work with for the second 18 holes, right? And then I think on the second round, I was 3 over at the turn. Right. Oh, wow. So I was still doing okay. Yeah. And then I managed to proceed with 6 shanks in a row.
Wow. That'll do it.
That was mentally destructive. Yeah, that sucks. And I missed it by 2. I missed it by 2. So, I mean, eventually I had a decent chance. Even after that, I had to, kind of calm myself down a little bit and work through it, right? Yeah. I mean, I can't remember. I don't think I've ever shanked it in my life, especially that many in one round. But there's something about the PAT that does something, right? Like knowing the number, you're still nervous a little bit, as you said, right?
I don't think it matters what the number is. There's still a lot riding on that game, those 2 games of golf, and it's 36 holes in one day, which is tiring. So it doesn't really matter what the score is. It's still tough. So many people, even though everyone's off 4 or less, because your handicap has to be 4 or less. I think the day I did it, like 75% of the people failed. three quarters. So it's
But normally they would shoot scratch. They would shoot close to par, right?
normally, exactly. But it just shows what pressure can do to someone. Having that pressure you have to pass this, but it's not the end of the world. You can still redo it.
I know they've recently restructured that a little bit, haven't they?
It's so silly. I mean, for guys like us that did the PGA, having to do that.
I would still do it, even though that was a hard experience. I would do it all over again.
Right.
The PAT, right? Like having that part in.
I don't think you even have to do it now. I don't know for sure, but I think to become a PGA golfer, I think the entry level is far lower. I don't think you need the same handicap, the same qualifications needed to when we did it. When we did it, I think it was quite difficult in my opinion.
Yeah, it wasn't the easiest feat.
No, I think it's got more expensive now, but I think the work has got less, and you don't have to be as good as player. But anyway, it is what it is. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll talk about that some other time. Okay, so you turned professional at 18.
18. Well, I enrolled in the PGA, which also means you sign off your amateur status and you become a professional.
Yeah. That's when you can start collecting money.
Well,
in a sense.
You can earn money from playing golf. Whether you do actually earn any money from playing golf is a different thing. And once you enroll into the PGA, the PGA is not just about playing. There's many aspects to the PGA, and it's coaching, it's business, it's all of these things rolled into one degree. And you're doing assignments on these aspects. You're working at the golf club. There's quite a lot to it, and so your playing kind of takes a back seat because you're spending so much time on working or doing assignments or learning.
You're a student of the game now instead of playing it, right?
Well, I think this is a misconception because my label is I'm a PGA golf professional. But I think when I tell people that, in their mind, they think, oh, he's playing on TV with Tiger Woods.
The PGA Tour.
The PGA Tour, which is not true. And it's not to say that I haven't played in professional tournaments, but the PGA is just a degree that allows you to work in the golf industry or gets you ready to work in the golf industry. And I think a lot of people have a misconception about what the PGA really is and what being a PGA professional really is. I can definitely play golf to an okay standard, but I'm not playing with Tiger Woods. I work in the golf industry, and I'm 31 now, started when I was 18. I spent the last 13 years pretty much just teaching golf and playing to keep my standard okay.
The interesting thing is it's not the same the other way around, right? You could be on the PGA Tour, but it doesn't mean you can teach necessarily, right? So
absolutely, yeah. I say this all the time. I think there's also a big misconception with that. A lot of people seem to think, well, if he's a good player, that means he can teach me how to be good. And I would say actually most of the time it's the opposite, because to become a good player, that means all you've done is spend majority of your time focusing on your own game and just playing. You've been beating balls, playing 18 holes a day, hitting up, 500 balls a day, which means that actually you have no clue on how to teach.
Yeah, because everybody's different, right? Yeah. They don't have your same physical literacy. They don't have your same mental game. People don't learn the same, right? So you're very, very elite in one aspect, which is yourself then, right?
Yeah, and actually when you become really good at something, it's unconscious. You don't even know how you're doing it. You don't even know how to explain how you're doing it. I always use walking as a good analogy for this, because everybody is a professional walker. No, everyone can walk very efficiently. But if I was to ask you, okay, how are you so good at walking? You'd be like, actually, I have no idea. It's unconscious to me. I don't realize I'm doing it. And that's what happens with any sport. When you do it enough and you get really good at it, you don't even know how you're doing it. And so to say that a good player is also a good coach, they're two very different skills. To be a good coach takes many reps, many lessons, constant research, trial and error, and you have to do loads of it. So they're two very different things. But I always try and make that distinction with myself. I don't like to call myself a professional player, a professional golfer. I would say I'm a professional teacher because I've spent the last 13 years doing it. But to say I'm a professional golfer, I think is disrespectful to the professional golfers. The guys out there that are actually really good at golf. I'm someone that can definitely shoot level par. but those guys are above and beyond me.
For sure. And we're not bashing players by any means, right? We're just saying there's a big distinct, and there's a lot in things. I'm pretty sure there's a lot of things that we can actually learn from the players as well, right? You know, how they approach the game, the tournaments, right? And kind of pick their brains on that and their routines and their discipline. But we're just saying it's completely different from.
Well, it works both ways. You know, I think it's disrespectful for a coach to say, I'm a great player, and then the vice versa. But that's not to say there's great players out there that are also great coaches. It just doesn't happen very often. You know, I think it's less likely. I think more likely than not, what could happen is someone's a great player in their early years, and then they get to 50, 60 and decide to start teaching more and more, and then they get good at coaching. But all I'm saying is to become good at coaching requires a lot of reps. Just like to become good at playing requires a lot of reps playing, to become good at coaching requires a lot of reps teaching, you know. So I think, they're two very different skills.
I agree. So how long were you in the working at your club in the UK then?
So I did my PGA from 18 to 21, so it took me 3 years.
And then you came out here immediately?
No. So I was quite lucky, really, because the head pro that I worked under left just about the time I qualified. He left the golf club. Okay. And because I was doing a pretty good job when I was there as the assistant, the owners asked me to be the head pro. So, which is kind of unheard of at the age of 21, to become the head pro of a golf club. So I took that opportunity, and so I took over the academy, doing the whole junior program, teaching adults. So I kind of got through into the deep end with that, which was a great experience.
What was that experience like? What did you have to do on a kind of day to day? How many coaches did you have? Or
I think we had, it wasn't many. It was 2 or 3 coaches, but they kind of did their own thing. Okay. You know, I just ran my side of it. But it was. I enjoyed it. You know, because I enjoy that. I enjoy golf business side of it and growing things. But it was the same. I had to set up my own company. So I was handling my own finances and all that kind of thing. But yeah, I enjoyed it. Weekends were mostly with the kids in the junior program. Weekdays were with the adults. I mean, looking back now, I could have done it way better, you know, from what I've learned over the last 9 years or whatever it's been. But yeah, it was a great learning process for me. And then, yeah, I think I was about 22 and a half, about a year and a half doing that. And I came to the conclusion, okay, I'm still very early on here. I want to go abroad. I don't want to stay in England. And that's when I decided to come out to China.
That's a big move, because a lot of people, I think, would really like that head pro job, right? And they wouldn't want to give that up. You gave it all up, taking a big chance to, have you ever been to China before? No. Was that your first time?
First time. I spent a few months in Thailand, so I was kind of relatively familiar with Asia. But I think China's a different beast to Thailand.
So why China though? What was like, all right, this is it. I mean, you've never been here, you've never experienced it.
Again, I had a friend who was already over here. So when I came over, I had him. And then, you know, I think Shenzhen is a very modern city where so many people speak English. It didn't feel like China to me. It just felt like another modern city. So it wasn't that a bigger difference for me in terms of living. It's just that, you know, I grew up in England in a rural village and then coming to a big fancy city. That was the biggest difference.
Was it different from what you expected?
Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know why, but in my head, I had China as like these temples and green tea and more rural, right. You know, and then I came out here and it's huge skyscrapers, modern city, you know, millions of people, hustling, bustling. And I think that was the biggest difference. I don't know why I had it in my head that it was going to be like this, you know, monks everywhere and that kind of thing. But so yeah, I guess that was a bit of a surprise, but a good surprise. You know, it was a good surprise. And yeah, so I had a friend out here, and again, I just saw the opportunity that golf was becoming in China, and the opportunities it had for me as a golf coach. So yeah, I think I just saw the opportunity, I guess.
Where in Shenzhen were you?
I started at Zhenjiang. Okay. Yeah, so in Longgang. Okay. And started working for an academy called 57 Golf Academy. That lasted about 3 months because that academy was not doing great. And then the guy that I came out to China for, John, him and his partner, James O'Brien, he's still in Shenzhen. They invited me to work for their new academy called 18 Under. Quite quickly, we moved downtown Shenzhen, Futian and Nanshan. And majority of that time was spent working at Shenzhen Golf Club. So I spent, I don't know, a year and a half, 2 years working under 18 Under at Shenzhen Golf Club. That's kind of when I started to make my videos. You know.
Okay, so you started it. Okay, so you started then already, because that's quite early, isn't it?
Oh no, it would have been more than that then. Maybe 5-6 years ago, I started making the videos, I'd say. So yeah, quite early on. Wow, that time.
What got you started with it? When did you look at somebody and go, hey, that's interesting, or what was necessity?
Yeah, I think there was a Chinese coach who started making these just simple videos. Again, I always knew marketing was really important when it came to this job, but I think one other coach was using Douyin to help them, expose their teaching, and so I started just making videos on there. And again, like I said before, I think the first video I made did okay, and so I was like, oh, okay, this is good. I can do more of this because I enjoyed the editing side of it as well. And so yeah, I probably started making 5 videos a week.
That was quite a bit.
Yeah, and I think this is where, again, I've been doing it for a long time, and I was doing it very often, and if anybody else is thinking about getting into that world of social media and videos, I would definitely say it's quality, quantity for a long period of time. So the quality, and especially now because so many golf coaches are making content. So many coaches are trying to get into that world, and so there's more competition, which means the quality is getting higher and higher. So you have to be really on top of the quality side of it, but then you also have to make a lot of videos, because it's one of those things. It's kind of out of sight, out of mind. If you're posting once a week, people forget about you so quickly. And so you have to be continuously in people's head that you're there, and it's quite repetitive. But yeah, I think if anyone wants to get into it, it's make great videos that's helpful to people, do it a lot, and then do it for a very long period of time, and you'll get somewhere.
How do you come up with the videos?
Well, actually, yeah, making the videos definitely made my coaching better because you're always thinking about ideas for the video topics, and so. I'm always watching videos of other coaches anyway, especially in the West, because there's so many great coaches making content now. You can learn a lot from them. So you take bits and ideas from other coaches, and then you kind of, when you're teaching, you start to use that information, and I guess you combine those two things into your own style and think, okay, how can I make this into a video? So I guess that was the process. But once you start making videos, you're constantly thinking, okay, what video can I make? And how can I communicate it? How can I show it? How can I edit it to make a great video? So once you start making them, it becomes something on your mind quite often on what videos you're going to make.
I remember that because, well, we'll get back into the social media stuff in a sec. Yeah. But I remember when you came on board and we started working together at Mission Hills. Yeah. You never stopped doing that, right? Like right. You continued to push new videos out and everything. How do you get that consistency and then discipline? Does it take a lot of like, oh, I don't really want to do it, but I've got to do it, or is it more just a natural, oh, this is what I want to do, this is what I share?
Yeah, to be honest, I enjoyed it. Okay. I definitely enjoyed it. I enjoyed the creative process of making videos. Again, like coming up with the ideas, the editing style of it, putting the clips together in a certain way, and I'm not going to lie, obviously also getting the success. I guess I had success. I could see the followers going up and the people enjoying the videos I was making. That's also motivating. And I totally get for people making videos out there that are not getting much return from their videos. The following is not going up. They're not getting any service from it. That's tough. To continue making the videos even when you're not getting any return is hard. I was lucky because I guess I was getting a return. And so that was motivating.
Yeah, you did it quite early on.
It was easier when I did it. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was less people doing it, right?
It's so much harder now because the competition is so much higher. And also, I think people are getting bored with the same kind of tip videos, which I get, because the problem is now the entry level to make these videos is almost zero. Yeah. Any golf coach can make these videos because you can just copy and paste someone else's idea and turn it into, and if you're half decent at editing, anybody can make these videos. And I think the viewers, the golfers, have kind of come around to that and think, okay, well, anyone can make videos. It doesn't require a specific qualification or degree to enter this market. Yeah. And so you could get a coach who's taught golf for 2 months and thinks, I'm going to start making videos. Even though they've got nothing to say of value, they're making videos. And I think people have smartened up to that a little bit and realized, okay, a lot of this information might not be beneficial. And so people are getting bored of it.
And that's something scary about the internet and social media sometimes, right? Like there's just so much information out there. Yeah. You don't know what's right or wrong sometimes, right?
Yeah. And I mean, the amount of students I get coming to me, 1 week they're doing really well. The next week they come back for the lesson doing something really weird. I'm like, where has that come from? And they're like, yeah, watch this video of this guy. And I'm like, damn, So yeah, it can be dangerous, because there's too much information. But it's just proof that information doesn't necessarily make you better.
That's something interesting, because I tell my students the same thing. Like, okay, you're watching that video, but that video might not necessarily be useful to you, right? Yeah. Because you might not have that problem. Yeah. I think a lot of it is there's no perfect swing, right? So you're trying to decipher your own problems and what you need to work on. Yeah. But, as an example, if you're not making good contact with the ball, there's so many different factors that could impact that, right? Like, which sort of what we had to get trained on. Yeah. Going back to the PGA, right? You learn about the ball flight laws, and then the impact factors that affect the ball flight laws, and then the pre-swing, in-swing principles or something, right? Like that's kind of like the foundation that we work on. But then even on those impact factors, there's so many things that like can influence that. Absolutely, yeah. So it's just picking that one that is actually your problem, right? And a lot of people...
Yeah. The problem with the videos is that, let's say there's a generic video, stop coming over the top, right? That's a popular one. The problem with the video is that it can't see why you're coming over the top, because there'll be a root cause reason for why you're compensating in that way. And so, you might get a video saying, okay, stop coming over the top, stop being out to win, do this drill to get you more into out. But it's not taking into consideration that you've got a wide open club face that's causing you to go over the top. And so that's the problem with the videos, is not looking at you personally, and it's not finding out the root cause reason for why you have those later problems, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, for sure. Because it could be just one little part of it, or it could just be the outside problem, right? It's not the root of it, right? Yeah, it's just the surface.
Yeah, it's like well, it could just be a grip problem that's causing your over the top out to win. And the video doesn't explain that, because it's just a 30-second video on here's a quick drill to get you more into out. But it's not telling you why personally you're doing it in the first place, So videos can be dangerous. I mean, I can't say anything because I'm the one making the videos. And it's very hard to navigate that world of, okay, is this information actually helping people, or am I doing it just to get some views? And there's a hard balance to get there, and it's hard. It's not easy.
What's been the most popular video that you've made?
I mean, swing videos always do well, like me just hitting a golf ball, because they're shorter. Shorter videos will always do better because they get more views. In terms of like teaching videos talking about slicing the ball, because a lot of people slice the ball, are always quite popular. Grip videos are always quite popular. But it's quite random.
Was there a video that surprised you? Like that, I don't know why that done well, or I don't know why that didn't do well.
Oh God, there's been so many videos. I can't remember half the videos I've made. I've got to be honest. Ball flight videos always surprise me, like just hitting a driver in the dark where they can see the ball flight. They always did great. But you definitely, as a person that makes content, you navigate your videos on what people like. which is not always a good thing because it's not always videos that help people. And I think you've got to, if you're going to make content, you have to stay true to that. Like, okay, what will help people? And just try and keep making videos like that, because eventually you'll do okay. It's very easy to start making videos to just get the views, you know.
My next one is to do just a series just on ball flight laws, as you were saying, because I think what I've noticed is that hasn't been talked about a lot. A lot of it is just, how does my swing look? How does my swing look? How does my swing look? But for me, it's what's the end goal of that, right? It's to improve your ball flight, right? Whether it's to hit it higher, lower, straighter, all of that, right? Like that's the end goal.
Well, that was definitely with the PGA. I think that was definitely the most valuable lesson I got within teaching, is that whole systematic, okay, start with the ball flight, work it back to impact factors, then go to your principles. I think that way of diagnosing a swing is really good, because it gives you a bit of a system on how to do it. But you're right, there's so many players and coaches here that would not know the impact factors to hit a push slice, you know. So I think that's very, very basic, but very valuable to know, because it can then help you work backwards into the swing and start to diagnose it.
It's almost the foundation, though, right? Like that's how you. I mean, if a person visually looks like he's, you know, coming out to win or something like that, but then he's hitting the ball pretty straight. I mean, that to us, it's like, why am I fixing that then, right? Like, so that to me was as you said, the most valuable lesson. Because I think growing up as a player, or, you know, when you're when you're just learning the game, not necessarily teaching it, that's not something that you think about. At least I wasn't taught that, right?
Yeah, absolutely not. You know, I had no idea. Yeah, I had no, and again, we go back, I had no idea how I was doing it, which brings me back to being a good player. You don't even know how you're doing it. You're not even conscious about how everything's working. And that's when you know you're at a good level, when you don't even know what's happening, you know. And I think that's, going back to that, what we said earlier. But I get, you know, moving that on to technology, you know, now we've got TrackMan, GC quads. I guess we can get lazy with understanding that, because we've got this tech telling us directly what's your path, what's your face, your angle of attack. You know, they give it all of that to us.
But even with that, I think it goes back to the end user, right? You have to be able to set it up properly, number one, right? Because you can absolutely destroy someone's swing if you've angled it incorrectly and it's giving you the opposite numbers, right? And so, you know, if it's not set up in the, you know, the right position, you know, instead of in to out, you're telling you're 10 degrees out to win.
Yeah. I mean, it's also the coach's job to educate the student on what those numbers mean. And if they're relevant to that student, you know, because if you look at TrackMan or GC Quad now and all the data that's available, 99% of it is not going to be relevant to that one student. So I guess it's our job also to explain, okay, this is the relevant part and this is what it means. And this is what you've got to try and improve out of your 5 impact factors.
Do you use a lot of technology in your lessons?
Well, I do, because I only teach indoor. So I have to use it. You know, I spent a few years using GC Quad. Now I'm using TrackMan. But yeah, indoor you have to use it because you need some way of showing the ball flight. But would I say that you need it to improve a golf swing? Definitely not. It's great for feedback and great for giving the students something to work on with feedback. You know, if they're working on club speed, for example, and trying to hit the ball further, having that data available and see it is a great way to give them motivation on, you know, okay, I'm at 100 now. Oh wow, I just got 107. I'm progressing. I'm getting faster. So I think it's great. I don't think it's a necessity to get better. You don't need to know all those numbers to get better at golf. But I think, you know, if you have it available, why not?
Okay. So you went from under 18. We worked together at Mission Hills. How was that experience? You were there for a year and a half, I think?
Year and a half, yeah. Well, the reason why I moved to Mission Hills was mostly because I kind of got burnt out of working in the city, because I was working at Shenzhen Golf Club. The teaching environment wasn't very good at all, because you're just, to anyone that knows what Shenzhen Golf Club practice facility or what it was, it's been knocked down since. But I think it had like 40 hitting bays, all very close to each other. And so teaching, I was just in one of those bays. You got loads of people around you. You got kids running around. It's 40 degrees heat. You got the sun belting at you. And it was just tough environment to be doing 6, 7, 8 hours of teaching. And then the other teaching facilities were kind of non-existent. You didn't really have a short game area. You had no access to the golf course. And so one of the reasons why I wanted to go to Mission Hills is because the teaching environment was far nicer. You had access to grass hitting, short game areas, course access. So that was one of the big reasons why I wanted to move, kind of get out of the city, nicer teaching environment. I also had all you guys there, which I think is really important in your working environment. Absolutely. It can get lonely. It can teaching golf can get lonely, especially if you're on the range on your own all day. Having a good group of friends around you in the same environment, not only just to see every day, but also to just talk about the job, discuss teaching ideas, I think is really valuable. And so I've always tried to do that, is surround myself with like-minded people who, want to do the same thing as me, because it makes it way more enjoyable. So, yeah.
That's always been my biggest memories when, if I ever look back in the last, 10, 11 years I was here, is always the group of people around me. And that makes a huge difference, because I remember, I think 3 months in, 6 months in, I was already half checked out. Like, even though, I'm a Chinese American, right? I speak the language, I understand it, the food I eat, everything, but it's still different, right? But then I had that group of kids around me. Not kids. I had the group of sometimes we act like kids, but the group of coaches around. I think that's what helped me stick it out, and that gets overlooked a lot.
Absolutely.
And so for the guys that are thinking about coming out, right? I don't know, if the guys in the UK or in the US are thinking about coming out, but I think having that group is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess I've worked 3 different places whilst being in China. Every place I've worked, I've always had at least one good friend who I've worked with. And so going to work, I've always got that person there to chat with and talk about it. And that's really important. I think, would I still be in China if I didn't have that close net of friends? I don't think so. I think that's probably the biggest reason why I've stayed here, for sure. Yeah. So yeah, I think I'd say not only to foreigners, but to also Chinese coaches, find an academy where you've got a good group of people that are all on the same path you are. That you all want to get better at this craft, and you bounce ideas off each other, and you can discuss different students. I think that's very valuable.
You described it as a craft. Right. I think that's very, very important. Yeah. Because I think a lot of people end up kind of staying stagnant. Right. And they just go, okay, well, I think I'm good. But as a craft, you're constantly trying to make it better, right? It's a form of art, right? You're always evolving, right? And you're always discussing, you're always researching, you're always testing it out. I mean, we're always evolving. The golf swing's always evolving. Golf clubs always change. And so I think that's also very important for the guys to understand.
Absolutely. Well, for me, there really is no better feeling than making someone better. Because it makes you feel good, because you feel like, oh, I'm good at this. And then it makes them feel good because like, okay, I'm getting better at golf. And so we're always chasing that feeling and chasing that great lesson where you feel like you're really helping. Your information and your knowledge is valuable to another person. And for me, there's no worse feeling than the opposite. And having a bad lesson and feeling, oh my God, I'm charging money for this. They're giving me their time, and they didn't get better. That feels terrible. Yeah. And so I'm always avoiding that feeling, and I'm always chasing I want to make golfers better, which is the aim of the game. And so that's why you continuously research, develop new ideas.
But I think those bad lessons, right? I think those are always a reminder of, we need to understand why they're not getting better. and then it almost kicks you in the butt to try to get even better, right? Because you don't want to, have another bad lesson again, right? So it's like, okay, why am I having this bad lesson, right? Is it the delivery? Is it the communication? Is it the drill I'm using? Is it the preconception of what they're thinking before they came into the swing? There's different factors, right?
Well, I think that's what makes a good golf coach or keeps getting you better is the reflection part. I think it's a bad coach would have a bad lesson and just be like, oh, it was a student's fault. It wasn't my fault. What I'm saying is great, but the student just couldn't do it. Whereas what you should really do is say, okay, it's all my responsibility, right? I have to take, if the student didn't improve, something I did wrong, and then use those bad lessons as your lesson. Use those mistakes as your learning part. It's not great for the student, but it's good for us in the fact that we can overlook, that lesson and say, what did I do wrong? How can I do it better? And then you'll always get better at this craft. You'll always get better at this job.
I live by that as well, because there is a Chinese saying that there's not a bad teacher, right? Which I could see that angle as well, but for me personally, I think the teacher has to bear all the responsibility, right? Because we haven't found the key to unlock what they need to do. So it's our responsibility to constantly find better ways to communicate what we want them to do better, or we need to talk to ourselves and making ourselves better. Maybe there's different things that we don't know, right? There's knowledge untapped, and we need to find that.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Don't get me wrong; it's still a two-player game. Meaning, if I was to try and teach, if I was to try and teach that chair how to play golf, I'm not going to succeed, right? And if you do have a student that's just not putting any effort or time or practice, you're probably not going to see too much progression. But I think that if you want to improve at teaching golf or anything, always take the responsibility and ask, how could I do better? And if they're not practicing, how could I encourage them to practice more? So I think definitely having that trait of it's all on me, and if they don't get better, how can I improve? I think
I think the only times where I've actually gotten mad at students wasn't because that they weren't getting better, but it's the reasoning behind that. Sometimes they're just checked out, right? Like they don't even want to get better. That's the only time where I've actually gotten mad, and like it's an attitude problem, because I think a lot of it is an attitude, because you look back and you go, okay, why are you here then? Right? You're here for me to help you get better. But if you don't even want to get better yourself.
Well, to be honest, I mean, I don't teach kids anymore. Or I shouldn't say that. I should say I don't have any junior students. And that was the biggest reason for that, is because a lot of them were not there because they wanted to be there. It was because their parents wanted them to be there. And that was very frustrating to me, because I feel like I'm giving you all my energy here and you just don't want to be here. But it's kind of a lose-lose situation.
I wouldn't completely write that off from on my side of things, right? I enjoy teaching juniors. I'm the opposite, right? But for me, a lot of it is doing a lot more work around the different parties. It's almost like we've got to talk to the students, and kids are like sponges, right? They'll believe what you say, if it makes sense, right? And they have their own train of thoughts. Parents have their own train of thoughts, but then it's how do we manage the parents and the students so that it becomes a win-win situation instead of a lose-lose situation. But it takes a different approach than just giving kind of just a typical, golf, or giving up, right? A typical golf lesson, right? It takes a lot more energy and outside work, I think, to make that happen, which sometimes you win some battles, you lose some battles, right? It's a tough battle because you're almost infringing on their family, and it's never a good outcome sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's admirable from your part, and I guess you've had way more experience working at the PGA with a full-time program, constantly dealing with those parents.
I didn't have to deal with that part of it. Not with the full-time. I didn't have to deal with the full-time parents as much, but a lot of it was when I was doing the operational side of it, it was dealing with the complaints, dealing with, but sometimes the complaints, obviously, the things that were the coaches kind of maybe miss something. Okay, that's fine. But a lot of it might have been just a misperception, right? Or a misunderstanding, which then you have to communicate that out, right? But I think a lot of it it just takes communication, and understanding. And that to me is the other part of it.
When I left Mission Hills, that's when I kind of said, I need a break from teaching kids. And I was in a very fortunate position where financially I had enough adults that I didn't have to. I'm still open to it, if in the future, if I have a junior that really wants to be there, really wants to get better themselves, with a parent that's realistic about the achievements that can be made for the amount of practice that's been putting in, I would definitely do it. It's just, from my experience, the expectations are very unrealistic for what we're working with. We're working with 1 hour a week practice or lesson with someone that doesn't really enjoy playing the game, and their expectation is that they're going to be shooting 75 in 25 days. So it's that's when it's you're losing the battle already, right? Because it's they think they're expecting something that's just impossible, and that's I found that difficult, So, but yeah, now for me, I'm in a really nice place because I teach all adults, mostly beginners.
Do you teach in Chinese, English now, or what's the?
No, all in English. I have probably 95% of my students speak English. Okay. And again, that was the benefit for me of making the videos, because in the videos I always spoke English. Obviously I had Chinese translation, but it obviously attracted people that spoke English. Right. And so obviously people assumed that I don't speak Chinese. They would be right.
No, your Chinese isn't as bad as you think, though, right? You could get by day to day.
I think that's why. I mean, I've been here for 9 years. I don't want to try and put any excuses out there, because I should be. I've lived here for 9 years. I should be able to speak the language relatively fluently, and I don't. And I think what's happened is, first of all, so many people speak English, so it's easy to get by. And my Chinese got to a place where I can get by day to day. If I want to order a DD or order food, I can do that. And so it's very easy for me to be lazy with it. There's not much incentive now for me to really push through and keep doing it.
Okay. So you've left Mission Hills, started your company. Yeah. How was that whole experience like?
Very stressful at the start. So we started Pure Golf. Well, I'll explain the situation. Left Mission Hills to start own indoor place. I started with 2 other people, Adam. Most guys will know Adam from the videos, and then a Canadian guy called John Hua. Came to Nanshan, opened our own indoor place, and we named it Pure Golf. Initially, it was nothing more than just 3 coaches wanting to open an indoor place where we enjoy teaching separately. So it's not like we are working together. It's just 3 different coaches making an environment where we like teaching, working with each other that we enjoy. And that's all it was. And then slowly it kind of evolved into acquiring more coaches that were equally like-minded, who wanted to become good at coaching. And it kind of started to move in that direction of being an academy, which is kind of where it is today. But yeah, at the start it was stressful because it was all self-invested. We didn't have any outside investors putting money into it, so it was all our own money. And then there's the cost of renovation and all of that, which wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was a lot to me at the time. And then you've obviously got the monthly overheads, which are not cheap. The rent is expensive. Yeah, rent is expensive. You had maybe a couple of members of staff. And so you've always got that lingering over your head every month of, I have this amount of money to pay. No matter how well I do, the overheads are there. So that was really stressful. And I remember, I think for the first 2 weeks, I don't think I sold anything, which was surprising. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a terrible failure. And then I started making sales and I could relax a little bit. But at the start, it was stressful. Yeah. But after 6 months, I got enough students and I could relax a little bit more, and it was more enjoyable after that.
Okay. And so with that move, did you enjoy that move? Or did you enjoy that ever since, even with that stress?
Well, I mean, now I'm very happy I made the move to do my own thing. I think there's benefits to being employed, and there's benefits to being self-employed, benefits to being your own boss. I think my character, my attitude has always suited being my own boss, because I like to take the responsibility if it fails. I don't like the feeling of blaming someone else if it doesn't go well. And so I'm very happy I made that move to do my own thing. I mean, since then, a lot's changed. I think we stayed kind of pure golf for about 2 years. We then moved to another indoor facility that wasn't ours, a place called Van Golf, really nice place. And then Pure Golf was at that time owned by 3 people still, but John had left and a guy called James Herbert, again, most of you probably know, came in. So we were still a 3 partnership, but we found partnership was difficult. I mean, partnerships are always difficult because you had 3 people with probably different perspectives, different opinions on things. And about 8 months ago, we decided that we need one owner. So Adam decided to take over, basically. So bought us out, and then Adam continued Pure Golf. Adam then came back to our original location, which is where we are now.
Here we are. Yeah. It's really nice, by the way. If there's nobody, if there's somebody that hasn't been here before, it's awesome. This is a very, very well done place.
Yeah, so Adam came back to the original location and completely renovated, and renovated really nicely. It's like, I think the style he was going for was like a traditional English golf club. So there's a lot of wood. It's on the 32nd floor, beautiful views. He did a really great job and invited me to come and teach here just as a freelance golf coach. So that's what I do now. I don't own Pure Golf anymore. It's Adam's. I just teach here freelance. But I would definitely say it's the best indoor golf facility in Shenzhen, maybe even in China, so my world now is I'm basically just a freelance golf coach who has my own company, and I teach at Pure Golf.
And you still do your social media videos?
Yeah, not as much as what I was doing before, because obviously I had some cooperation with different brands like PGM, TaylorMade, PGM. I was under contract where I was making a certain amount of videos, helping them and with their hat.
You did a lot of teaching aid for PGM, right? Ambassadors. Yeah. What got you into that? I know when we were working together, you loved your teaching aids.
Oh, I still do. Yeah, I mean, I love training aids. Yeah. I think training aids are great because they're a great form of feedback for practice. So when the coach isn't there, you've got a training aid to help guide you whether you're doing it right or wrong. But yeah, with PGM, they approached me quite early on and offered me a cooperation deal where I helped them make product videos for them and their products, and I also wear their hat in the videos. And it was great. PGM are a great company based not far away from here. They make all kinds of products from clothing to training aids to golf bags to golf clubs. Everything you can think of, they probably make it. And they do it at a very reasonable price, even though the quality is still very good. And so working with them was great. And then TaylorMade, I started working with TaylorMade, kind of using their clubs, which has also been great. They're awesome. Ken is great. What they're doing is really cool. And I would say I would still use TaylorMade clubs even if I wasn't in a working relationship with them. So, but yeah, it got to a point for me where I didn't want to feel obligated to make these videos because I didn't want to just chuck out videos that I didn't really believe in or trust. I wanted to make videos when I wanted to make them and make content that I believe to be true. And so I decided to kind of come out of those contracts and I still work with those guys. I still work with TaylorMade, but yeah, it just got to a point where I didn't want to be obligated to do it.
And you're also working on other projects.
Yeah.
And so how can you share kind of what you're working on?
One of them is a golf app. It's called Golf Cam. If anyone watches my my videos, they'll see I make a lot of course vlogs now of me playing on the course.
We'll put that on the bottom of the video, golf cam. And where can they find it to download it? Just on the App Store? Is it only on Apple or is it on Android?
Just on Apple, but it is in Chinese. So yeah, the app basically allows users to make kind of professional looking golf content, whether it's course vlogs or like the ball tracer, that kind of thing. So started that like a year ago. That's doing pretty well so far. Always developing new functions and new features and stuff.
Was that something that you were thinking of doing, or how did that come about?
No. Actually, a guy that I know who lives in Guangzhou, he works in that world of app development and he's a golfer. And he randomly messaged me out of the blue saying, Ollie, can you send me some of your swing videos from the course? And I was like, yeah, sure. Sent them over and I said, oh, can I ask why? And he was like, yeah, I'm developing this app. Here's the idea. And he told me the idea of the app. And I was like, that sounds great. So I said, look, how do I get involved? You know, so I invested into it. And yeah, and that's kind of how it matured and how it happened. So it wasn't my initial idea. It was someone else started it, and then I came in. You know,
is it a paid? It's a paid app, right? You have to pay for it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, monthly subscription. But yeah, for anyone wanting to make golf content, it makes your videos look professional.
Yeah, it looks like what you see on TV, right? Like shot 1, shot 2.
That's kind of what we're going for, is to make it look like you're playing in a PGA Tour event or whatever. But I think there's a lot of potential there because more and more people are making content. And I also think, you know, just going back to the video stuff, I think, again, like I said before, the entry level to make tip videos is quite low. But to make playing videos is not. You have to be able to play golf. And so that can also separate coaches if they're a decent player to show that they're able to play the game. So yeah, Golf Camp is the app. I've also been developing my own training aids, you know, because like I said, I love training aids. So I've got 2 training aids coming out probably within the month that will be available to buy. I've been designing them for a few months.
Are you able to disclose what they are?
Yeah, I've got one of them's very simple. It's just like a stick that attaches to the grip, and it represents what the club face is doing. Really simple little thing, but for a long time I was using a T-peg and sticking it in a bit of tape and then putting it on the grip, you know, because it's a really good way for the student to visibly see what the club face is doing and how the hands control the club face. And so I kept using this T-peg, and it was always annoying to put it through the tape and put it on the thing. So I just thought to myself, why not just make this product? You know, why just not make it a product, and then even if nobody wants to buy it, I can still use it for my teaching. So that's the first one. The other one is what I call the flat stick. It's basically a 7-iron length, 7-iron lie, but it's got about 12 degrees of loft. So it's almost like a driver loft. Okay. And the idea with that is, you know, if you're someone that scoops the ball, you know, if you're scooping, you're adding loft to the club. Whereas if you're compressing the ball, you should be taking away the loft. And so the idea with that club is that, okay, you start with 12. Let's see if you can hit balls, bringing it back to 0. So if you succeed and you get shaft lean, you compress the ball, you'll actually hit the ball across the floor like a putter. And so it's a great way for people to practice, not only to change their concept of, okay, it's not my job to lift the ball, it's actually my job to take away loft, right? And then also the feedback of, okay, if I hit this ball in the air, I know I've done it wrong. You know, whereas if I just hit it across the floor, I know I'm moving in the right direction. The lower I hit this ball, the closer I am to getting shaft lean. So I think that's going to be a great one for people that scoop. So yeah, those 2 are going to be, PGM are helping me with that. They're going to be ready within the month. And then, yeah, it's something I'm definitely interested in because I'm always teaching and I'm always thinking about what could help. And so, you know, making these training aids is pretty cool. Yeah. So yeah, they're the other things I've been doing.
And so, I mean, it sounds like, I mean, obviously you're very passionate about golf and especially about teaching golf, right? Because you mentioned before, you knew from a very young age, you weren't going to go down the playing route, right? And so, you know, that age old saying of if you can't play, you teach, right? But for me, it seems like, you know, you knew you were going to teach all along, right? So coming up with all these teaching aids and all that stuff, you know, was almost natural to you.
Well, I've been doing it for 13 years. which is quite a long time, full time for 13 years. And again, because I've always, the feeling of helping people is great. Not only that, it's not like a selfless thing. Like I want to help everyone. Right. I also want to help myself because it feels good to me. Yeah. So it's win-win. But when you're doing it every day and you're constantly thinking about it on how to get better, these ideas just eventually, they start to materialize because that's always in your mind,
So here's a question, because this actually pertains with sort of where we're going with this. For my last guess, in a business sense, what would you do, or what do you think is the most important trait or quality you must have in order to be successful?
Yeah, it's a good question. Hard question. I think, well, first of all, it really depends what you mean by success. Okay. For me, success is absolutely doing something you enjoy most of the time. Nothing you do you'll enjoy 100% of the time. There's always going to be hurdles and complications that are annoying. You're always going to have bad lessons that are not fun. But if you're pursuing something that you enjoy and you have some kind of passion over, that for me is success in itself. Because if you enjoy it and you have some kind of passion in it, you're going to spend a lot of time doing it. And anything you spend a lot of time doing, you're going to get really good at. And if you get really good at something, you have something to offer other people, and then as soon as you have that's something to offer, that is then returned in money. So money is the byproduct of being good at something. And I think when most people say, okay, how do you be successful? They're thinking, how do you make money? Mm-hmm. Right? But money is simply the byproduct of giving value to other people. Yeah. And you can only get that value from something you're good at. Yeah. You can only get good at something from having a desire about it, having an interest behind it. So I would just simply say, look, and it's very difficult, I'm not saying it's easy, find something that you have an interest in and then try and turn that into something that can return you money, because then it's enjoyable at the same time.
I think there was a study done that said the importance of creating value first.
Right.
I think there was a book about it. I can't remember off the top of my head, but it talks about creating value first, because then whatever you do has meaning, right? Whether you get that return or not, at least for yourself, you're almost investing in yourself, right? But you always need that value first.
Yeah, the value is the money. The money is a byproduct of the value. And so, but again, you can't provide value unless you've done something a lot, because you're not good at it at the start. No one's good at teaching in the first year because it's really difficult. And so the more you do it, the better you get and the more value you have to other people. And that's why you have to enjoy it, because you're not going to do it for 10 years unless you actually enjoy it. You're going to do it for 2 years and be like, God, I don't enjoy this. And then you're not going to get very good at it, and then there'll be no money anyway. And so I think that's really what you're trying to find is, what do I enjoy doing most of the time? Not all the time, it's impossible, but and then figure out a way of, okay, how can I provide this to other people? How can I give this value to other people? And then the money will just start to come in, right?
Did anybody inspire you, or did you get any advice from anybody?
I think, like everyone, it's not just one person or one thing. It's a combination of hundreds of people, loads of different little comments that kind of guide you into where you go.
What's the best advice you've ever received?
Oh God, I don't know. That's a really tough one. Best advice. Yeah, I'd probably say that. I'd probably say, although it's something I live by, is give value. Value is everything. If you can help other people, you'll always be fine. Yeah. You'll always be okay if what you do helps other people. Yeah. And so I'd probably say that is, probably say the best one.
Okay. What would you give? What advice would you give, to young professionals going into the industry?
Again, I would probably decide: are you going for playing or are you going for teaching? You got to choose one, because you can't do both. If you're thinking, okay, I really want to be a player, but I'm just going to teach on the side as I do it, you're now competing against players that are just doing it 8-10 hours a day. That's their full-time job. You're not going to compete with those guys. You know, if you say to yourself, I'm going to teach 3 hours a day and then try and play in the spare time, you're competing against people doing it full time. And vice versa. You know, if you, okay, I'm going to play and teach a bit on the side, you're then competing against coaches who are doing it full time. So I would say choose one. You know, if playing's your thing, give yourself 5 years of just saying, I'm just going to play full time. Obviously, it's a bit harder because you've got to find money to do that, but give it your all. And then if you decide, okay, I'm not good enough, then go into teaching and then give that your all. But whatever you do, give it your all. I think that's, you know, you have to decide which one you're going to go down, playing or teaching, you know.
So one of the questions I would say is how do you balance, you know, your teaching and social media, and has you know, having a bigger following presence or bigger follower presence changed your lifestyle, or what's changed?
Not really. I mean, again, it's not like I'm any kind of celebrity that's got millions of followers and I walk out on the street and people notice me. It's just, you know, the social media side has helped me gain more students and help my business. But in terms of like the social media side is not like a full-time job. You know, it's when I've got an idea for a video, I'll shoot it. You know, from shooting to editing and all that, it probably takes me an hour and a half, 2 hours total to make the whole thing. And so, you know, some days I'll make a video, some days I won't. But the balance has been pretty easy because they're so, what's the word? You know, they work together because the videos I'm making is also about the teaching. Right. So I would say to any golf coach out there that wants to get more business, there's no loss in making videos. Even if they don't get any views or you don't get any, you know, if you've got the time, why not make them? You know, at least you're learning a new skill of editing and marketing. You know, even if you get no return from it, you might as well use your time better.
Do you follow anybody on social media that you've like, hey, I like this guy, I want to hear what he says more?
There's a few people in the West that have definitely changed how I teach and learned a lot from. People like Mark Crossfield was one of my first. I think he talks very clearly, very logically. I don't enjoy listening to coaches that complicate it, use big words, you know, try and make themselves seem smart all the time by explaining it in a really complicated fashion. So Mark Crossfield was a great one for that because the way he explained it was always very rational and easy to understand. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any more. I can't remember Adam Bezel. I can't remember his name. I think he's called Scratch Golf Academy. He's great. There's quite a few in the West that make great content. So there's definitely been, yeah. But again, I would also advise coaches, you know, with videos now, all the information is out there and the internet. So as long as you're interested in it and you want to spend the time researching that, there's so many great coaches giving their information for free.
So what would you, as a viewer, what advice would you give the viewer in deciphering what is good information from bad information?
God, that is a great question. Honestly, I have no idea. That would be my honest answer to that. It's a minefield for the golfer, for the student. Again, this sounds awful because I make the videos, but I would just say don't watch any videos because having a bad lesson is way worse than having no lesson. That's right. You know, because a bad lesson can give you bad concepts, bad ideas. And I always say it's like you're planting a seed, right? It could be a good seed or a bad seed. If you plant a bad seed and you persist with that idea, that concept, you're gonna create a bad flower. You're gonna create bad habits. Yeah, correct. Yeah, exactly. And then rebuilding that is very difficult. Whereas, you know, having no lessons at all, your body is very smart. Again, walking is the best example because everyone learns to walk without having lessons. And yet look at us all today. We're really good at walking, right? We're all quite efficient at walking. And so your body can take over. You know, if you give it enough repetition, your body will find the most efficient way of doing it because that's your body's biggest commodity. Is that how you say it? Is energy. your body values energy the most. And the last thing it wants to do is waste energy. And so if you do it enough, your body will find a efficient way of doing it. A good coach can speed up that progress, that process quite a lot. But a bad idea, a bad coach can completely destroy you, and turn you around completely. So I would probably say that. I would probably say, because it's so difficult to know what's good and bad for a beginner amateur golfer, because they have no idea, just don't watch them all together. That would be my advice.
I mean, that's very similar to what we were always told from our mentors is if you have a good player in front of you, the last thing you do is mess them up, right? Like that, don't mess them up because they're already good, right? Absolutely. So don't mess them up.
Yeah. Well, to be honest, this is why I don't teach good players, because I just think if you get to a level where you're shooting in the 70s.
You're not saying all your students are bad players, right? Just kidding.
Low handicap, 70s golfers, I don't really teach, because I just think when you get to that level, obviously your technique's pretty decent. You just need to play more. I mean, everyone's going to listen to that and be like, oh no, coach can help. I don't think so. I just think, and ideally you'll do a test, which I guess we'll never be able to do, where you get a good player shooting in the 70s, just plays 6 days a week. No coaching, no anything, just plays 18 holes 6 days a week, versus a guy that maybe plays 4 days a week and has a few lessons. Yeah. If I was a gambling man, I'd put all my money on the guy just playing 6 days a week, right? Because I just think the reps and your body is smart enough to eventually get better at it anyway.
I look at it from a little bit of a different view in saying it's not necessarily just on the technique that they're looking for in a coach. Yeah. Maybe it's just a perception, right? It's a light switch that they haven't thought of before, and sometimes it'll help them, right?
Well, my argument against that would be that the mistakes they make are the lessons in themselves. And so if they keep making these mistakes.
But that's only if they have the skills to kind of reflect on that, right? And to help guide and supervise them on picking out these mistakes and not just dwell on them.
Yeah, there's also an argument to say that maybe it's just unconscious, those changes they make, when they're on the course. Again, if you just switch it off, the monkey mind, just switch it off and just let your body take over, what's not to say that by playing 6 days a week, your body figures it out. Your body figured it out to walk. And I'm not saying it's exactly the same thing, but yeah, my argument, and the reason I have this argument is because when I was young, I don't think I had any lessons. I had one or two, but I don't think I really listened, and I don't think I took anything into consideration. The only thing I would say I changed was my grip, because I had a really strong grip, and I knew that was wrong, and I knew that it needed to get, here, and it took me a while to fix that. But I think the reason I just got better at golf is I just played so much, and
because there are guys that have played golf for like 20 years, but they like plateau. Right. So, for the guys like that, they'd be like, well, I'm playing a lot. I'm playing a lot a year, once, and not once a week, but I'm playing, 3 to 5 times a week. I've been playing for 20 years. I haven't been getting better.
Yeah, well, in that scenario, I guess you got to look at it and say, well, okay, why are you not getting better? In that situation, I presume it's probably body orientated. Their body is not fit enough, right? They're not flexible, not strong enough. Maybe they're not hitting the ball far enough. Unless there's something fundamentally really wrong, I just don't see that happening. If they're playing 5 days a week, they did it for 20 years, they would get to a very, very good level if they had a reasonably athletic body. Physically, if something's going wrong, you're going to plateau. But that would be my theory on it. I think playing very often, once you have good fundamentals, which is why I like teaching beginners, because they're a blank sheet, and it's your job to give them the right concepts, the right fundamentals. There's no shortcut. You still have to do the work. You still have to do the reps. But once you've got those good concepts in your mind with good fundamentals, it's just playing. You just got to hammer the playing, and I think there's no substitute for that. It doesn't matter how many great coaches you've had. If you're not playing often enough, you're going to suck. You're not going to be great,
Okay. Well, we're getting towards the end of it. Yeah. Where do you see yourself in the next 5 to 10 years? You still going to be in Shenzhen, or?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know for sure. Again, I really love the lifestyle here. I think what will happen is I'll transition into a place where I'll probably spend my summers in Europe, in England, My hope is that in the future I can take students back to Europe, whether it's adults or kids, and I spend 2 or 3 weeks doing camps in England because the climate's nicer, the weather's nicer, and it gives me time to see my family, which as I get older, my family's getting older. Going back for 2 weeks a year, I don't think's very good. So I think, in the next few years, I might transition to spending 3 or 4 months in England in the summer or Europe, and then the remaining time here. So I think that's what's going to happen over the next few years. But who knows, life it throws curveballs at you all the time. So, but yeah, I would definitely say for the next 5 years, at least I'll be spending a lot of time in Shenzhen. In terms of work, I always aspire to just do the work I enjoy, teach the people I enjoy teaching. If I feel like I can't help you, I'll say that, and I'll say I'm not your coach. So continue just to teach people I think I can help because I enjoy it too. Do these other projects, continue to make these training aids that I believe can help people. I'll still be doing the social media, I'll still be making videos if I think it's helpful to people. But yeah, I haven't really put much thought into it, I guess.
Okay. Well, I mean, these time flies, so I'm sure we'll have this conversation the next 5 years again within. So a little tradition that we have on the podcast is giving a question for the next guest. Okay. What would be your question?
Shoot, I didn't actually think about this. I guess a good one would be, what's your teaching philosophy? Okay. What's your philosophy of teaching the game?
Okay. Yeah. All right. Well, the last bit of it, rapid fire questions. You ready for this? Yeah. Whatever comes to mind.
It might not be that rapid. It might give me a few seconds.
No worries. Favorite golf course in China?
Oh, good. I can't remember the name of it. It's in Kunming. It's one by the water. Is it Lake City or something? Can't remember. You'll know it. I think there's 2 courses next to each other, and they're next to the water. Okay. Anyway, that one.
One golf drill every player should practice.
One golf drill, perpetual, which just means swinging without stopping. I think that works for everyone.
Best advice you've received in your career?
The idea that you just give value, help people.
What's your golf superpower?
My putting. I'm joking. Definitely, anyone that's seen my golf flex knows it's not my putting. Probably my club speed.
I would say that as well. Yeah. You've got some very impressive club speed. Who's your favorite golfer of all time?
Tiger Woods, easy.
How do you unwind after a long day of coaching?
10 pints of beers with the boys.
What's the most rewarding part of being a golf coach?
Helping people, making people better at golf.
One piece of equipment every golfer should invest in.
That's a tough one. I'd probably just say like a yardage device, something to tell you how far you've got.
If you weren't a golf coach, what would you be doing?
That is a really good one because from the beginning of my work, it's always been golf. I think I always had an interest in architecture. When I was probably 12, 13, that was always something I probably wanted to do. So maybe an architect.
Okay. That's very different. Maybe you can. Well, you are architecting right now. You're designing. You're designing teaching aids.
In a way. Yeah, in a way. Yeah, just not houses. Yeah.
Well, Ollie, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah.
And so I think we'd love to do this again.
Absolutely, yeah. And by the way, great idea with this. The podcast. I think China needed something different in the social media world. It needed longer format videos where you're having these honest conversations and it's not so edited and rigid, so I hope it goes well.
Thank you. Well, I started it because one of the questions that we said before is deciphering good and bad information, right? So one of the ways, for me at least, what I'm hoping to do is to try to give as much good information as I can.
Just having honest conversations, I think is the way forward.
Exactly. Well, it's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Jason.
Thank you. Cheers.